Hey guys, tonight we drift into the Caribbean of the 1700s, a place where the night is hot, the air is heavy, and the only thing thicker than the sugar syrup is the silence after sundown. You're not in a resort, and no, there's no air conditioning humming in the background. You're stretched out in a hammock woven from local fibers, strung between two pillars of a simple hut. Palm thatch rustles above you. Somewhere, far off, a monkey shrieks once, then thinks better of it. Mosquitoes buzz faintly beyond the drape. Of your net, a fragile veil tucked tightly around you like some improvised bridal offering to the gods of sleep. You reach up and scratch one ankle anyway. It's too late. They've found the gap. You adjust the folds, sigh, and sway gently so. Before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from somewhere special tonight, drop your city and local time in the comments. I'm always curious where this sleepy voyage takes us. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You lie in a room with no windows. Just open spaces where shutters could go if someone were rich enough to afford them. The scent of burnt coconut oil from your neighbor's lamp wafts over. You'd snuffed your own hours ago. Because light attracts bugs and you've only just started convincing them you're no feast. Around you, darkness and a peace so thick, it's like syrup in the lungs. This is sleep island style in the 18th century Caribbean. The hammock sways because that's how hammocks do. It isn't luxury, it's necessity. Beds, the four-legged kind, are rare, heavy, hot. A mattress here? That's basically an oven. Hammocks allow air to pass beneath, and in this heat, that's more precious than gold. Indigenous Taino people had used hammocks long before any colonists set foot on the island. Spanish settlers quickly realized that if you wanted to survive the night without soaking through your linens or being bitten half to death, you needed to hang like fruit from the ceiling. The hammock also does something else. It moves. That rhythmic sway mimics the motion of a mother rocking her child. Turns out your body, no matter your age, responds to that. Modern researchers, yes. We jump to the 21st century for a second half confirm that rocking helps. People fall asleep faster and reach deeper sleep stages. Of course, you didn't need to know the science. You just knew that if you slept still, the dreams wouldn't come. Or worse, they would. Your hut creaks in the wind. Walls are made of wattle and daub, a fancy phrase for sticks, mud, and hope. You hear your neighbor cough a dry, tired sound. Someone further off hums a tune, maybe to settle a child or themselves. Even in the dark, you feel the sense of community. You're not alone, not ever. That has upsides and occasionally very odd downsides. For example, privacy, non-existent. If someone snores, you hear it. If someone sleep talks, you really hear it. There's no shame in it, usually, unless you mutter something too revealing. But we'll get to that in section 18. You roll onto your side, or at least try to. In a hammock, this takes technique. You've learned to shuffle, not flipping is for the foolish or the French. The rope squeaks slightly. The whole structure shifts like a slow pendulum. Outside, the insects don't sleep. The night here is alive. You don't so much fall asleep as you give yourself to it, surrendering slowly like a coin sinking in syrup. Above you, your mosquito net ripples slightly in the breeze. It's tied at four corners and smells faintly of lemon oil and something earthy. You remember being taught how to fold it just right to create a seal but not trap heat. Some people mutter charms while doing it. You tried that once. It didn't help, but it felt nice. Historians still argue whether these sleep setups were purely practical or carried deeper symbolic meanings. Some theories suggest hammock placement indicated social rank or spiritual alignment. Most likely, It just kept the scorpions out of your bedroll. You exhale. The night wraps itself around you like a warm shawl. No glowing screens. No buzzes or alerts. Just the rustle of leaves and the occasional grunt of something, probably a pig. Maybe a spirit shuffling by outside. One last note before you drift off tonight in this palm-shadowed room. Remember, most people didn't sleep straight through the night. The concept of 8 uninterrupted hours? That's modern. Back then, it was common to wake up for an hour or two, pray, chat, even have a snack before settling back in. They called it first sleep and second sleep. If you find yourself waking in the middle of the night, congratulations, you're just historically accurate. And so, your eyes close, the world rocks gently, and the Caribbean night sings its slow, sleepy lullaby. You stir. Somewhere just on the edge of waking, a dog barks once. Then silence again, like the night is holding its breath. The floor creaks beneath feet that aren't yours, but they move slowly, cautiously, someone returning from the latrine. Maybe. It's not your concern. You shift in your hammock, one leg briefly, slipping out from under the netting before you remember the cockroaches and quickly tuck it back in. You are not alone in this dwelling. Not really. In fact, you're lying. Within what's known as a slave quarter, a cramped space shared with other laborers, some related to you, some not. Built from salvaged wood, packed mud, and held together with sheer determination. These quarters dot the plantation outskirts like scattered dice, their insides filled with stories no overseer ever wrote down. Tonight is cooler than usual, thanks to a breeze that finally pushed its way in from the sea. The heat isn't pressing down on your chest like it did last week. You can breathe, mostly. A small gift. Next to you, someone hums a lullaby in Congo or Twi or something that once belonged to a village far away. The melody is soft, circular, meant more for the singer than any baby. It's about remembering, about soothing, about surviving, and this is how sleep happens here. Not in silence, but in shared sound. In breath, in whispers, in the thrum of lived memory. It's been a long day, 12 hours or more in the cane fields. Under a sun so hot it peeled the skin off your neck like wet paper. The body's exhaustion is deep. But even then, rest doesn't come easily. The floor is too hard. The hammock's too tight. Or perhaps it's your ribs, bruised from the day's labor. You try to settle into the ache. You glance across the room, if you can call it that, to see a child curled up beside their mother, who fans them both with a woven palm frond. The frond flaps softly, rhythmically, keeping both air and bugs in motion. It's an old technique. Taino mothers once did the same, and the enslaved African women adapted the habit, merging practices, surviving the night. Historians still argue whether these fanning rituals were functional or ceremonial. Were they simply keeping cool, or calling on spirits, soothing ancestors, keeping nightmares away? Most likely, it was both. In a world where faith, function, and folklore blurred, nothing was ever just one thing. Your shoulder itches, but you're too tired to scratch. You wonder if you'll wake again during the second sleep. Maybe. Maybe not. One of the men near the far end of the room talks in his sleep, something about home, or fish, or goats. You can't quite catch it. No one laughs. Sleep talking is normal. What's not normal is what sometimes happens after. There's a small story passed around quietly. One of the elders once muttered the name of the plantation, master's wife, in his sleep. No one knows if it was innocent or not. No one asked. By morning, he'd been moved to a different field entirely. No explanation, just reassignment. And silence. It's a reminder. Even in sleep, you're not completely free. A flicker of firelight dances outside. Someone in the next building is boiling water, maybe for an herb tonic. Many families keep a tiny garden patch beside their quarters, growing fever grass, guava leaves, or soursop. They believe these soothe the body and quiet the nerves. Sleep is a fragile thing here. If it doesn't come naturally, you have to lure it gently. You once tried a sleep mix passed down from an old healer. Crushed nutmeg, tamarind pulp, and a hint of cane alcohol. It worked, technically. You slept, deeply. You also woke up under the water trough with no idea how you got there. So not a repeat experience. Now, you stick with the fan, and the hammock, and the gentle hum of songs older than anyone on this island. A rat scurries along the roof beam, its shadow catching the low lamplight. You don't flinch. Rats are part of the night too. So are moths, frogs, and the occasional screech owl that sounds like a crying baby until you learn otherwise. Walls are thin. You can hear everything from the rustle of cotton cloth being adjusted to the wheeze of the oldest resident snoring through his one good nostril. The chorus of sleep is strangely comforting. The world may be unjust, but in the slave quarters, at night, there is rhythm, memory, even comfort, however small. You trace the hammock ropes with your fingers. Some are fraying. You'll need to ask Cousin Tamer if she has spare twine. She's good with knots. Her mother taught her back in. Benin, or so she says. No one really knows if that's true, but it sounds beautiful when she tells it. Someone farts. Loudly. You stifle a laugh. Even here, even now, some things are universal. And that's the odd truth. The nights in the slave quarters are filled with pain and resilience, but also tenderness. Jokes, lullabies, and breathless moments when, despite everything, you feel almost safe. Not because the world is safe, but because someone on the other side of the room just whispered goodnight in a language you almost understand. Your eyes close again. And this time, you sleep. You wake, not with a jolt, but with the slow awareness that time has passed. The air is warmer now, thicker, sun just beginning to nudge the world awake beyond the horizon. But sleep doesn't end just because the day begins, not here, not in the 18th century Caribbean, where naps are both a coping mechanism and a kind of quiet rebellion. This part of the world runs on its own rhythm, governed less by clock hands and more by shadows, heat, and when your body gives up. That's why, even in the age of European colonization and their rigid ideas of productivity, the siesta endured. You wipe your brow and shift into the cooler shadow of a nearby banana tree, hammock now traded for a woven mat. You're not sleeping. Yet, but you will be. Everyone will dot by midday. The heat has become a hammer. It presses down so hard you forget what your own breath feels like. Chickens pant. Dogs dig shallow holes in the dirt, trying to lie in the cool. And the humans? They nap. The Spanish, of course, brought their tradition of the siesta, but the locals enslaved, free, indigenous perfected it. While the plantation owners imagined themselves civilizing the tropics, the people quietly crafted survival into art. Sleep wasn't weakness, it was armor. No one scheduled these naps. They simply happened. Even the harshest taskmaster knew better than to keep forcing bodies to work in the midday sun. It was bad for productivity, bad for health, and worse for rebellion. Tired people are quiet. Overheated people? Not so much. Historians still argue whether the siesta was truly allowed or simply tolerated. Was it cultural accommodation or reluctant necessity? Hard to say. The written records come mostly from colonizers, and they were more interested in sugar profits than sleep cycles, but we know this much. The siesta was everywhere. Picture yourself at 2:14 p.m. lying on your back under a raised platform used to dry tobacco leaves. The shade is deep here, the scent rich and earthy. Your shirt sticks to your skin, but it's fine, you're not moving. A low hum of insects fills the air. Occasionally, a rooster crows like he's just now getting started on the day. You feel the slow descent of sleep coming. Not the kind that ambushes, but the kind that seduces. Your body is grateful. Your mind lets go. Next to you, someone snores softly. Not the rattling snore of exhaustion, but the open-mouthed sigh of someone who has surrendered entirely to gravity. You envy them. Soon you'll join them. A fly lands on your toe. You twitch. It leaves. For now, these naps weren't always peaceful, of course. Sometimes the overseer walked by, boots crunching over gravel, just to remind everyone that this mercy was temporary. But most of the time, he stayed. Away. Even white men sweat, after all. And not all sleepers were workers. Free women napped in shaded courtyards, their heads wrapped in patterned cloth, arms crossed over their chests, dreaming of cooler evenings and mango slices. Children slept in groups, tangled together on woven mats like little puddles of limbs. Even some of the wealthier colonists indulged, though they called it restorative meditation to feel fancier. You roll onto your side. The dirt beneath you is cracked, dry, but cool where the sun hasn't touched. A beetle scuttles past your nose like it's late for something. You ignore it. You're busy falling asleep. The siesta became a kind of unsanctioned ritual. No bells. Rang to market. No priest blessed it. Yet it was one of the few times in the day when the body, no matter who it belonged to, was allowed to simply stop. And in that stillness, something else happened too. Dreaming. People swore that dreams during siesta were more vivid, more truthful. Some believed that the sun, at its highest, burned away lies, so whatever you dreamed then came directly from the spirits. You once dreamed of your mother sitting by a river with a jug of lime water, smiling at nothing. When you told the old man who interprets dreams, he simply nodded and said, "She remembers you. That was 3 years ago." You still think about it sometimes during these naps. Somewhere in the plantation house, the master sleeps too. On a proper bed, with linen sheets and a fan operated by a servant with a palm frond. You're not supposed to know that, but you do. Sleep, after all, is the great equalizer. Even the cruelest man must close his eyes sometime. Not that it makes him less cruel. You begin to drift again, heartbeat slowing, muscles slackening. Insects chirp, the heat sings, and your body hums with the strange contentment of temporary escape. And here comes the first joke. No one napped harder than the priests. Oh yes, they preached against sloth, warned against idle hands, and condemned the sins of the flesh, then vanished for 2 hours every afternoon and returned refreshed. Robes spotless, eyes clear. Prayer, they said. Communion. Of course, it was. And if dreams count as communion, then you've been devout for years. You chuckled softly. Or maybe you just imagined it. Your head sinks into the crook of your arm. Your breath slows. The nap takes you like a wave, slow, heavy, unstoppable. World fades. And in its place comes something better. Oblivion, heat, shade, and just for a moment, peace. You're not on land anymore. The world is moving gently, rhythmically, with a motion that rocks not just your body but your stomach, your thoughts, even the breath in your lungs. You're aboard a ship now, somewhere in the Caribbean Sea. And the wind smells like salt and sweat and wet rope. This isn't a cruise. There's no shuffleboard or umbrella drinks. You're lying in a tightly stretched canvas hammock, slung between two wooden beams below deck on a merchant vessel, or perhaps a naval frigate, depending on how your luck panned out when you signed. On dot, it's dark down here. Always is. Lanterns hang at intervals, casting oily yellow light on barrels of rum, salt pork, and sea biscuits hard enough to dent a man's tooth. The wood creaks around you. Everything is damp. And the smell? Imagine Old socks, boiled cabbage, unwashed bodies, bilge water. And you're getting close. But despite that, you sleep surprisingly well. Because sleep at sea is strange. It's not just about closing your eyes. It's about synchronizing. Your body has to match the motion of the waves, the creak of the boards, even the snores of the man 2 hammocks over. You don't fight the sway, you yield to it. The hammock helps. Like the ones used on land, these hammocks were borrowed from indigenous Caribbean practices. Sailors adopted them because they were practical, space-saving, and surprisingly comfortable when hung correctly. If hung incorrectly, you might find yourself flipped out like a sack of potatoes mid-dream. Historians still argue whether European navies fully understood the hammock's ergonomic benefits, or if they simply got tired of broken cots. Either way, by the 18th century, the canvas hammock was standard issue across ships in the region. You lie in yours, arms crossed over your chest, swaying. Sleep comes in shifts out here. There is no night. There is only off-duty. Watches run in 4-hour intervals. If you're lucky, you get 6 hours. If you're unlucky, say, during a storm, you don't sleep at all. Right now, the sea is calm. The ship groans like an old man in his sleep. Rats scurry overhead, chasing crumbs between ceiling planks. Someone down the row has tied a piece of salt pork above his head. For luck, he says. No one questions it. You adjust your blanket more like a damp wool rag and close your eyes again. You've learned to sleep through noise. It's a sailor's superpower. Cannon fire barely rouses you. Thunder? Rockabye baby? A man falling off deck? Well, that's someone else's shift. You're sleeping, but there are limits. Occasionally, the boat hits a wave just wrong and sends the entire lower deck jerking. You feel your stomach lurch, your shoulders tense. But the hammock absorbs most of it. It cradles you. A soft sling in a hard world. Your bunkmate snores, loudly, with a strange nasal whistle at the end of each breath. You contemplate waking him. Then you remember he punched the last man who did that. You let the whistle become background music. The hammocks are hung close, barely a foot between yours and the next. Privacy is non-existent. If someone rolls over too fast, you swing in sympathy. If someone dreams too loudly, you share it. Someone once muttered a full love letter in their sleep. Word for word. Names, details, regrets. You still think about it sometimes. It was oddly beautiful. There's no rocking lullaby on this ship, but there is rhythm. The drip of water from a loose plank. The sway of ropes. The dull thump of boots. Above. The hiss of wind through the seams. It lulls you. And here's your daily oddity. Some sailors used to urinate into their hammocks at night, rather than climb to the deck. It was disgusting. It was also cold topside and hard to balance in the dark, so they did what they had to. You sleep with your arms tucked in, just in case. Someone nearby mumbles a prayer in Spanish. Another one whispers back in Dutch. You recognize neither, but the cadence is calming. Belief hums in the dark like a ghost with manners, and then hums in the dark like a ghost with manners, in the dark like a ghost with manners, and then distant splash, followed by laughter. Someone's dropped something overboard, or someone. You don't get up to check. You dream of land, of coconuts, of beds with pillows, of waking without a crick in your neck or a rat in your boot. But honestly, you've gotten used to this. The swaying, the stink, the closeness. The way sleep comes like a curtain, fast and thick, wrapping everything in one damp, communal breath. There's a kind of togetherness to it. You all sleep here. You all wake here. You all smell the same, sweat the same, dream the same. It's not glamorous, but it's real. And despite everything, When the sea is calm and the sails are full and the rats aren't chewing anything vital, you sleep like a stone. You wake up scratching, not dramatically, just persistently. A little on your forearm, then your calf, then the back of your neck. And there it is again, that unmistakable, slow-burning itch that starts small and ends in full-body irritation. Made it to Bridgetown, the capital of Barbados, and you're sleeping in a modest boarding house built from coral limestone and timber, where the beds are soft enough to feel luxurious until you realize you're not alone in them. Welcome to the golden age of bedbugs, not the cartoon kind, the real ones. Flat, clever, and excellent at hiding. These little pests are already awake, crawling, feeding, and judging your hygiene in silence. You won't find them during the day. Oh no, these are night creatures just like you. You toss aside the linen sheet. Too hot. Anyway, you fan yourself with a folded shipping manifest someone left behind. The ceiling fan doesn't work it. Never worked. Someone carved a small face into the ceiling beam above your head. You stare at it, wondering who they were. Then you scratch again. Bedbugs were everywhere in the 18th century Caribbean. Imported, exported, and gifted like particularly vengeful party favors. They nested in mattresses, linens, cracks in wood, even the seams of sailors' coats. And the worst part? No one really knew how to get rid of them. Sure, people tried. They boiled bedding in seawater. They stuffed mattresses with tobacco leaves, hoping to smoke them out. Some burned bundles of clove or sage, thinking the scent might drive the bugs away or at least mask the smell of old sweat and desperation. Historians still argue whether these folk remedies worked or were just hopeful rituals passed down in the absence of real pest control. Spoiler: the bugs usually won. You lie back and try to think of anything else. The sound of waves hitting the dock outside is pleasant, at least. And someone is singing down the street a low calypso hum that rises with the breeze and disappears. Like sea foam, you wrap your blanket around your legs tight, like a cocoon. It's a risky move in this climate. You'll sweat, no question. But at least the bugs will have to work for it. Here comes your fringe tidbit for the night. Some people swore that sleeping with a slice of lime under each armpit kept the bedbugs off. The idea was that citrus repelled insects and masked body odor. You tried it once. Woke up sticky and mildly resentful, but the bugs did seem fewer. Then again, maybe they were just taking the night off. The woman who owns the boarding house claims she checks every mattress weekly. You believe her, in the way you believe a drunk sailor when he says he won't spend his wages on rum. It's a nice thought. It's also obviously false. You twist your pillow, trying to find the cool side. There is no cool side. The whole thing is warm, damp, and smells faintly of soap that stopped working days ago. Still, you appreciate the effort. Sleep won't come easily tonight. Not just because of the bugs, but because you've got that overstimulated travel brain, the kind that wakes you up at midnight to wonder whether you locked your trunk, or if the harbor rats can chew through hemp rope. They can. You roll to your side. You stare at the window, where a curtain flaps like a ghost with no commitment. Moonlight spills in. It makes everything silvery and slightly unreal. A man on the street calls out something in patois slurred. Then cheerful. Somewhere, a bottle breaks. Then silence again. That's Bridgetown. It sings you to sleep, then startles you awake just to keep things interesting. There's a book next to your bed. You didn't bring it. Maybe someone left it. Behind. The cover is cracked leather. The title, barely legible. Common Cures and Curious Sleepings. You open it. Page 1. To repel night creatures, salt the corners of your room and burn molasses. You close it again. You've got enough night creatures already. You scratch again. Your ankle this time. You consider getting up. Splashing water on your face. maybe taking your sheet out to the line and shaking it like you're exorcising demons. But you don't. You stay. You breathe. You scratch once more, and then you give in. Because that's how people slept then. Not perfectly, not always comfortably, but eventually. Sleep wasn't a luxury. It was a necessity. And even if the mattress had teeth and the pillow had opinions, your body would find a way. You hum the tune from the street singer to yourself. It's catchy. Your eyes close. You feel the bugs less. You focus on the breeze through the curtain. The weight of your limbs. The sound of your own slow breath. And despite the bugs, the heat, and the vaguely cursed pillow, you sleep. You wake to the scent of clove water and crushed coral, and for a moment you wonder if you drifted into a perfumed dream. But no, this is real. You're seated cross-legged on a woven mat inside a tiny one-room building in St. Lucia. Just beyond the edge of town, lit only by a stub of candle wedged in a rum bottle dot across from you, sits a woman known only as Mamang Lati, an herbalist, healer, and if the rumors are to be believed, a part-time sleep sorceress. Her skin is the color of dark cane syrup, her fingers stained with roots and dye, and she moves like someone who's already lived this moment in a dream and is simply acting it out again. She hums softly as she drops crushed clove buds into a clay pot of hot water. The steam curls upward, spicy and sweet. It's not just for scent, it's medicine. She says clove smoke opens the lungs and silences the mind. You believe her. Your sleep has been broken lately, buzzing thoughts, phantom, itches, dreams that flicker like candlelight and then vanish. That's why you're here, seated quietly while Mama Lati prepares a sleep tonic passed down through generations of mulatto and Afro-Caribbean women, combining African folk wisdom with European superstition and island-grown ingredients. She sprinkles in powdered coral, ground fine from the reef's edge. For stillness, she mutters, like the sea when it stops moving. You nod, even though that sounds terrifying. She drops in bay leaf, cinnamon bark, and a single dried guava. Flour rare, expensive, but effective, she says. Then she adds a piece of mango skin and stirs it all together with a carved spoon shaped like a sleeping cat. This is what sleep looks like here. Steeped, stirred, whispered over. Historians still argue whether these concoctions were pharmacologically effective or merely comforting placebos. But for the people who used them, the distinction was irrelevant. If you slept, it worked. You take the cup she offers. It's warm, bitter, earthy. It tastes like rain-soaked wood and childhood scoldings. You swallow it slowly and feel something loosen behind your eyes. The room is thick with candle smoke now. It clings to the air like velvet. Mamang Lati waves a smudged stick tamarind bark and sage around your shoulders. Not everyone believes in the spirit cleansing part, but everyone agrees you leave her house smelling amazing. She asks if your bed faces the window. You nod. She clucks her tongue. You let wind pass over your head while you sleep? She says, clearly horrified, that is how dreams escape. You had no idea. She tells you to move your bed. Tonight, before the moon is high. If you don't, your thoughts will unravel like a fishing net and your dreams will float off to haunt someone else's sleep. You promise to rearrange everything. You probably won't, but it's nice to be believed in. She packs you a small pouch of dried herbs to place under your pillow. It smells like clove, lemon balm, and something a little peppery. She calls it a head sachet. You think of it like a dream anchor. Before you leave, she adds one more tip. If you wake up between 3 and 4, drink a sip of coconut water, but only if it hasn't touched the ground. Groundwater attracts noisy spirits. You don't question that either. Back at your room, you boil the same ingredients she used and pour the mixture into a tin basin. You set it under your cot, just like she instructed. The steam rises slowly, ghost-like, carrying the weight of clove and coral. Into the ceiling beams. You lie back and breathe deeply. The scent surrounds you. There's a strange comfort in this old ritual. No pills, no sleep apps. Just plants, memories, and the faint belief that someone knows something you don't. It works. Your thoughts begin to quiet. Not vanish, but settle. Like dust in still water. And here's your light joke of the hour. Someone once tried to replace clove with chili powder, thinking spicy is spicy. He didn't sleep for 2 days and now flinches whenever he walks past a pepper bush. You make no such mistake. Your dreams come slow, sweet, like syrup down a spoon. And somewhere, in the haze between waking and rest, you hear Mamang Lati's voice. Again, remember, child, still the sea, still the mind. You let go. And sleep takes you, not like a hammer or a wave, but like a soft hand pressing gently against your chest. You're awake, but barely. Your eyes are open just enough to see the moonlight slanting through a broken shutter, making strange patterns on the packed dirt floor. The candle is long since gone out. The room is still, thick with the kind of quiet that only arrives when even the insects have called it a night. But you're not in bed. You're not in a hammock either. You're walking, slowly, barefoot, blade tucked into the waistband of your trousers, eyes scanning the edge of the sugarcane fields. You're on night watch. In the 18th century Caribbean, sleep was a fragile privilege, and someone had to stay up to protect it. If you were unlucky or too new, or simply trusted with a job, you were that someone. You walked the outer paths of Port Royal, Jamaica, once called the wickedest city on earth, though. By your time, it's quieted down a bit. But smugglers, fire, and wind don't sleep. Neither do the animals. Or the ghosts, if the older watchmen are to be believed. So here you are, pacing the perimeter of a modest plantation. You're not armed with a gun too expensive, just a cutlass. The blade is dull from overuse, but it's enough to frighten. Dogs and drunks, and perhaps even a sugar thief or two. The stars overhead are vast. Too vast. You look up and feel like you might fall upward. So you look down again, keep moving, sleep. That's for other people. You'll get your nap later. If nothing burns. If no one runs. If the wind doesn't scream. Most of the houses are quiet now. Windows dark, save for the occasional flicker of a lamp where someone couldn't sleep. You pause near the big house, its shutters tight, its walls whitewashed and smug. You're not allowed inside, not really, but you watch it, just in case. Sometimes it's not the rebels or the spirits you need to guard against. It's fire. Candlelight accidents were one of the leading causes of night disaster. A single overturned taper, a puff of wind, a sleepy hand knocking over a lantern, and the entire structure could go up like dry tinder. That's why watchmen like you walk slow, listen carefully, and know exactly where the water barrels are. Pass one now. Tap it with your toe. Half full, that'll do. Historians still debate how much of this night watch system was for true protection and how much was simply control, keeping enslaved workers under surveillance, guarding property more than lives. Likely both. But on the ground, under the moon, it all blurs. You rub your eyes, blink, yawn, mistake. The yawn opens the door for sleep to sneak in. You snap your fingers once, sharply. Stay sharp. You've got 2 more hours. Your route takes you along the edge of the cookhouse, still warm from the evening meal. It always smells like rice, grease, and burnt wood. Familiar, comforting. You lean against the doorframe for a moment and consider stealing 5 minutes on the bench just inside, but then you hear it, a rustle. Your hands on the cutlass before you even process the thought. You freeze, hold your breath. Another rustle. Leaves, maybe a rat, maybe something bigger, maybe someone. You step toward the sound. The sugar cane sways slightly, even though there's no breeze. You raise the blade. A goat emerges. You exhale. The goat doesn't notice you. It's busy being goat-like. You sheath the blade. The cutlass makes a soft clink. You're still alive. No fires. No runaways. No ghosts. Just goats still. You keep moving. Here's a fringe fact for you. Some night watchmen chewed dried guava leaves to stay awake. It didn't exactly taste great, but it kept the mouth busy and the mind slightly more alert. You've tried it? You prefer humming. And tonight, you hum an old maroon's lullaby passed down through whispers. It's strange, watching over sleep. While singing to yourself not to fall into it, you're nearing the end of your route, now circling back toward the slave quarters. You hear someone snore. Someone else talks in their sleep. Something about mangoes and a stolen chicken. You smile. You hope it's a dream, not a confession. The night is deep now. Witching hour, some call it. The time when the air holds its breath, when footsteps sound too loud, and every shadow seems to shift just a little more than it should. You think about sleep. About lying on your back, hands across your stomach. Letting go, but you don't. Not yet. Because even though most of the town slumbers, there's always one set of eyes open. Watching, guarding, hoping the night stays quiet. And tonight, those eyes belong to you. You're not in Port Royal anymore. Not on the sea, not on the plantation paths. You're deep inland now, where the jungle breathes slowly and the stars have to fight through thick layers of green just to peek down. Tonight, you're sleeping near a Taino hearth, a faint circle of stones and ashes at the center of a thatched-roof bohio, a roundhouse made of palm and cane. The fire's down to glowing coals, and you lie on a woven mat of yagua leaves, arms folded across your chest like you're preparing for a conversation with the ancestors. This is an older world, a quieter one. The Taino people, indigenous to the Caribbean long before colonists arrived, lived and dreamed in these lands for centuries. And though their stories have been broken, scattered, and reassembled through translation and time, one thing survives in every retelling: their sleep rituals were rooted in rhythm, nature, and spirit. A grandmother hums nearby, not to you, not really, but to herself or maybe to the child in the hammock beside her. The tune loops gently, soft as the brush of feathers. It doesn't mean anything, or maybe it means everything. The words don't matter. The sound is the spell. You close your eyes, let it wash over you. Sleep here comes differently. It's not something you chase. It's something you let settle on you, like the dew, like the night mist that curls in under the eaves and wraps around your ankles. You breathe through your nose, feel the earth beneath you. Solid, humbling. Beside the fire, a small carved bowl of mauby bark tea cools slowly. The bitter drink, made from tree bark and spiced with anise, cinnamon, and clove, is thought to calm the belly and still the spirit. It's one of many natural sleep aids that Taino and later Creole healers turned to, along with sweet bay leaves, crushed plantain root, and boiled orange blossom petals. Historians still argue whether these recipes were medicinal or mystical. The lines blur, as they often do in oral cultures. What matters is that people slept and dreamed, and trusted the leaves more than the doctors. The fire pops softly. You shift, pressing your shoulder deeper into the mat. It's not soft, not by modern standards, but it's close to the earth, and there's something steadying about that. Your heartbeat begins to sync with the crackle of the embers, the rustle of palm fronds overhead, the breath of the sleeping people beside you. In this place, you sleep as part of a community, not behind locked doors, not boxed into individual beds. There is no shame in snoring, no guilt in waking. If you roll too far and bump someone, they just roll back. No fuss, everyone's been bumped before. Children sleep in hammocks strung low to the ground, their toes brushing the cool dirt. Elders sleep closer to the fire, wrapped in cloth woven from cotton and cassava threads. The young men, like you, sleep light, half in dreams, half in readiness, ears tuned to the sounds beyond the clearing. There are stories of coarse spirits that roam the jungle, shadows that whisper, owls that carry messages. If you hear a low whistle in the night, you're told, don't whistle back, unless you want to invite something curious or hungry. You've heard the whistles. You've never replied. The grandmother stops humming, her voice replaced by a soft clack. As she grinds seeds in a stone mortar, even this late, she says it's for tomorrow's tea. But some say it helps to grind something if you can't sleep. Push the restlessness into motion until your body catches up. Someone near the wall turns over, murmuring in their sleep. You catch a single word, coabi, the Taino word for the afterlife. You wonder if they're visiting it right now. You remember what you were told before lying down, to sleep with your face away from the fire. Not because it's dangerous, but because spirits are drawn to the flames. Let them watch your back, not your dreams. A joke from earlier in the day bubbles up in your memory. A boy no older than 10 insisted that if you sleep with guava in your mouth, you'll dream of your future spouse. He tried it, choked, woke up furious, swore he'd try again next week. Smaller piece. You smile to yourself, then shift to your other side. Outside, something hoots. Maybe an owl, maybe not, no one moves. It's normal. Just part of the night symphony. You begin to drift. And in the drifting, you see flashes. A canoe gliding across moonlit water. A cassava field glowing under starlight. A woman with long braids and a painted face lighting a small clay lamp with a smirk. Dreams here are not random. They are stories. Sometimes they visit. Sometimes they wait for you to come to them. You breathe in through your nose. Clove, smoke, and damp earth. And then you're gone. You wake to the sun, but not from sleep. Because today, you're not sleeping at night. You're sleeping at noon, again. A different island this time, Trinidad, and the air is thick like molasses. You've given up fighting it. Everyone does. Eventually, you lie back in a wooden chair leaned against the wall of a rum warehouse and close your eyes. Arms folded, sweat running down the back of your neck in a lazy stream. This isn't laziness. It's strategy. You're engaging in what might be the most widely misunderstood medical phenomenon of the colonial Caribbean. The siesta. Yes, but more than that, strategic climate-adapted sleep. See, you're not just sleeping because you're tired. You're sleeping because your body demands it. The heat here doesn't just exhaust, it suppresses. Organs slow, thinking fuzzes. And when you try to resist, your body retaliates with dizziness, nausea, even hallucinations. So you don't fight. You surrender. Your shift doesn't resume. 4 hours. The foreman knows better than to disturb you. He's asleep, too, feet propped on a sack of raw sugar. Even the dogs lie flat like spilled laundry, tongues twitching in dreams about whatever dogs dreamed of back then. Probably fish guts. Or flying. Historians still argue whether this midday rest was a cultural habit inherited from Europe or an adaptation forced by the Caribbean climate. The answer is probably both. Spaniards brought the custom. Locals perfected it. Africans gave it rhythm. The sun made it sacred. Even labor was measured differently. In some parts of the islands, slave overseers timed field rotations based on natural pulses. First light, sweat start, sun's peak, bird silence, first breeze, goat bell, dusk, clocks, optional. The body was the better timepiece. You lie back further. Let the wall catch your weight. The wood is warm. The sweat on. Your shirt sticks briefly, then loosens. You don't even blink when a fly walks across your cheek. That's how deep into heat lull you've fallen, and then like a gentle, tide sleep comes. Here's your quirky fringe fact for the hour. Some Caribbean herbalists used to prescribe forced naps for women who experienced bad dreams or irregular dreams. The logic? Too many thoughts invited spirits. The cure? Lie on your left side after eating boiled plantains and stay there for 1 hour. If you moved, the cure was void. You tried it once. Moved after 10 minutes. Got a cramp. No ghosts visited, but you still felt judged. You dream now in the hazy, half-wake way of the tropics. In this dream, you're lying on your back in the field, face shaded by a banana leaf hat, and a mango hovers gently above your chest like it might descend into your hand if you breathe just right. You twitch in real life. The mango disappears, so it goes. In the town square nearby, a bell tolls once, not a church bell. A market bell marking the last hour before the stalls close. That means nothing to you. You are, at this moment, a puddle of sleeping humanity. Join the ancient brotherhood of Caribbean nappers, an unbroken lineage of sweaty, half-conscious dreamers ranging from dock workers to midwives to parsons, who publicly decried idleness but privately owned the best porch chairs. The science of it modern, of course, says that humans are biphasic by nature, built for 2 sleeps, the first after dusk, the second after midday. The 8-hour mono-sleep? That's a recent invention. The human brain, especially one roasting in 90 degrees Fahrenheit humidity, was not meant to stay on full power from dawn to dusk. You get it now. As you doze, as your breath deepens, as your heart slows, the siesta is not a nap. It's a truce between body and climate, between labor and nature, between colonizer and colonized, between the endless tick of the clock and the timeless hush of the Caribbean afternoon. And just when you're sinking deepest, your hand slides off the chair arm. You wake with a snort. Rooster eyes you from the corner like he's judging your form. You shift, settle again, and just like that, the nap resumes. You're lying in bed when the wind shifts. It starts as a whisper, just a sigh that sneaks through the cracks in the wooden wall. Then it becomes a murmur, a low roll across the trees, shaking the palms just enough to make you lift your head. And then comes the pressure drop. That eerie, too still hush that tells your skin something's coming. A hurricane. You're in St. Domingue, now Haiti, sometime in the late 1700s. The sugarcane fields outside your window are gone, swallowed in a curtain of gray. The rain hasn't started yet, but it's in the air, thick, electric, heavy as a lie. You lie back down, because what else can you do? When the wind comes hard, when the shutters rattle and the roof creaks and the animals go silent, you have 2 options: panic or sleep. And oddly, many people chose the second, not out of bravery, out of ritual. Because there were practices, beliefs, customs, ways to sleep through a storm that had more to do with faith than fatigue. You pull a wet linen sheet over your body, a trick learned from women in the lowlands. Dampen the cloth, they said, to keep the body cool even as the air turns hot. Wrap yourself tight. Not too tight, you don't want to feel trapped, but just enough to remind your muscles they belong to you. And then, you breathe. It's not restful sleep. It's defensive sleep, strategic, layered in superstition. You were told once that staying awake during a storm made your soul restless, that the thunder could shake your spirit loose, and if it slipped out through your mouth while you yawned, it might not come back. So you close your lips tight. The shutters rattle like bones. The door groans in its hinges. Somewhere outside, a metal roof panel flips and flaps, desperate to take flight. You imagine it cartwheeling into the sugar mill and slicing a clean hole through the master's favorite horse. You smile. Just a little. Historians still argue whether people truly slept through these storms or simply lay still, eyes shut, pretending. Some say these hurricane slumbers were more meditative trances, ways of quieting the mind so it didn't spiral into fear. You're not pretending. You're trying. You remember what the old cook said, wrap a red ribbon around your ankle. Keeps the wind from stealing your dreams. You don't have ribbon, but you tie a string from a broken sack of flour instead. It's close enough. The dream doesn't care about color. You think of animals too. Chickens huddle under the coop. Dogs dig into corners. Horses, if they're lucky, get brought inside. But humans? We lie down. We cover up. And we wait. There's a bowl of burned sugar and orange peel smoldering in the corner of your room. It's an old practice from enslaved Yoruba women, adapted for the islands, sent the air during storms to confuse spirits. You don't know if it works, but your room smells like candy and citrus and wood smoke, and that's good enough. The roof shifts. You flinch. But the house holds dot, and here comes your quirky detail for the night. During hurricanes, some planters insisted their workers sing in shifts, not hymns, but rhythmic field chants to keep morale up. Some scholars believed it was control. Others believed it was survival. A shared rhythm meant a shared calm. You've heard the chants. Sometimes they sneak into your dreams. You turn to your side. The sheet clings to your skin. The wind presses against the wall like it's trying to remember how to become a hand. The rain arrives all at once, like a god tipping over a barrel. It hammers the roof, pours through the gaps, drowns the silence in rhythm. You can't hear your own breath. You can't hear anything but the sky's fury dot, so you sleep. Because what else is there? You let the noise become your lullaby, the crash and boom and hiss and drum. You let your body melt into the mattress straw-filled, slightly moldy, but steady. You let your thoughts drift into something slower, thicker. And here's the surprise. It works. You dream again. But this time, you're underwater, floating just beneath the surface. The sea is warm. You can breathe. Above you, palm trees bend like dancers. You're not afraid. You're drifting, sleeping beneath a hurricane dot, and when you wake, the silence will feel louder than the storm. But not yet dot, not now. Now you sleep. You wake to the sound of breathing. Not yours, dozens of others dot, deep, shallow, wheezy, rhythmic. Some people sleep loudly. Some whisper in their exhale like they're sharing secrets with the ceiling. And all of them together create the strange background hum of a sleeping barracks dot. This is Barbados, and you're not on a plantation tonight. You're in the longhouse dormitory behind the sugar refinery, a place where labor doesn't start with sunrise, it starts when the machinery cools down. And sleep? It comes in shifts, divided by the schedule of the sugar. The room is packed with cots narrow, rough-hewn, side by side with barely a palm's width between them. You've wedged yourself between two sacks of molasses and the outer wall. The floorboards are sticky. The air smells like boiled cane, old boots, and the sharp tang of lime soap. You've got 4 hours. That's it. Then it's your turn to work. You lie down, shoes on, because taking them off means risking theft or just wasting precious time. You ball up your jacket for a pillow. It's damp. Everything is dot, and still you sleep. Not deeply. Not sweetly. But efficiently dot in these sugar barracks, sleep is measured like syrup, by the drop. The longer the boil, the heavier the rest. If you work the centrifuge today, your arms still tremble. If you stirred the vats, your skin still tingles from stray splashes. If you hold the sacks, well, your back is a map of aches dot, so yes. You sleep dot, and not just you. Everyone sleeps. Rich, poor, free, enslaved. Because in the world of sugar, the body is a machine, and sleep is its only recharge. Here's something odd. Plantation owners in the Caribbean often calculated sleep not in hours, but in economic value. They wrote memos estimating how many more pounds of sugar per day could be produced if their workforce got 45 more minutes of sleep. But of course, they rarely granted those minutes. They just measured them. Historians still argue whether these sleep reports were genuine, concern, or just cold math. But they exist in ledgers, journals, colonial dispatches. It turns out, even rest had a price. You shift on your cot. Someone nearby is mumbling in their sleep something about a rooster stealing jewelry, which might be a metaphor or just a bizarre dream. Either way, you make a mental note to ask him later. You cover your face with your forearm to block the lamp glow from across the room. They keep it on, low and flickering, so anyone who wakes to start the night shift can see. But for you, it's like trying to sleep under a flickering star. Still, you manage, because you've learned to nap with your ears open. Feet shuffle near the door. A cot squeaks. Somewhere someone has started a quiet game of dominoes behind a storage crate. You catch every sound, but none of them stop you from falling back into the fog dot. And here's your quirky fringe fact. In some parts of the Caribbean, workers believe that if you slept with a coin under your tongue, you dream of your next job. Problem was, most people couldn't spare a coin, so they'd use pebbles. Some swore it still worked. You tried it once. Dreamed of shoveling ash barefoot. Decided not to try again. Your back itches. You reach under your shirt and scratch. There's still sugar grit caught in the folds of your waistband. It never leaves. You could bathe for hours and still find sweetness in your socks. You sigh. Adjust your jacket pillow. Think of home. Or what passes for it now. A small hut, a cracked bowl, a tree that hums in the wind. Memory blurs, softens. That means you're close. Close to the drift. Your mind flickers. Brief scenes. A donkey tied to a moonlit post. A child laughing in their sleep. A single candle flickering on a windowsill left for someone who didn't. Return dot and then nothing. The room fades. The breathing of the others becomes oceanic, vast tidal dot. You sleep, and the sugar waits. You wake before dawn, not because you're rested, but because someone's gently tapping your foot with a wooden ladle. It's the signal. She's here. The midwife. You're in Martinique in a one-room home pressed up against the edge of a cane field. The walls are thin and the door's never been straight. But tonight, the whole building seems to hold its breath. A baby is coming. The midwife walks barefoot, her white skirt damp at the hem, a satchel of herbs and oils clinking softly. At her side, she moves with quiet urgency, part priestess, part medic, part myth. People say she never sleeps, that she dreams while walking, that her feet remember every birth on the island. You sit up grudgingly, rubbing your eyes. You're not the parent, just family, or a neighbor, or someone the mother trusts. Doesn't matter. What matters is that she's in labor and you don't sleep while others scream. Unless, of course, you're the midwife. Because oddly, between contractions, in those short pauses of exhaustion and effort, she rests. Not quite naps, not full. Sleep, but something in between. Moments of meditation so deep she hums softly, eyes closed, hands resting on her knees. One breath, two, then she's back up. The mother groans. The floorboards creak under shifting weight. Outside, frogs croak, like tiny timpani. Inside, time distorts. This is Sleep by Firelight and Lamp Oil, where every shadow dances and every minute stretches into a story. You help light a lantern stuffed with lemongrass, said to keep the air clean and the spirits out. It works well enough, though mostly it just smells like lemon and smoke. You breathe it in anyway. The scent settles into your chest. The midwife begins preparing a postpartum tea before the birth even finishes. Dried ginger, pimento, cinnamon, boiled in a clay pot. For strength, she says, barely above a whisper. And so her sleep returns faster. Historians still argue whether these teas had medical benefit or were ritual comfort. Truthfully, it doesn't matter. The act of preparation is its own magic. And here comes your fringe detail for tonight. In parts of St. Lucia, midwives would whisper the baby's name into its ear during the first nap, believing it helped bind soul to body. If the name wasn't known yet, they'd whisper a placeholder, something soft and secret. You stretch, stifle a yawn, feel your spine protest. Sleep pulls at you, but the room is thick with tension and miracle, and you wouldn't miss this for anything. Eventually, the baby comes. Quickly, quietly, and with much less drama than you'd expected. The mother exhales like she's been holding her breath for years, and then comes the silence, the soft cooing, the towel-wrapped bundle, the exhausted mother slipping into a trance that may not be sleep, but certainly isn't waking. The midwife smiles. She boils the tea. Then, and only then, she finds a small stool, places her bag under her feet, wraps a shawl around her shoulders, and closes her eyes. You watch her, not wanting to disturb, not daring to blink. It's the first time you've seen her still, and she sleeps, not deeply, but fully. 5 minutes, maybe 10. She awake before the coals cool. Pour the tea, mind the belly, whisper a blessing. Then, walk barefoot to the next house or the next life. You lie down on the floor, head resting on your arm. The baby breathes softly. The mother snores once, gently. The midwife doesn't move. You sleep in the space between candle flickers, and for the first time in days, your dreams are quiet. You wake in darkness, not the peaceful kind, but the deep velvet black sort that seems to press in from all sides. No moon tonight, no wind, just stillness. You're inside the great house now, not as a guest, not as a master, but as someone who works here, maybe a maid, a steward, or a young apprentice to the cook. You've earned the temporary right to sleep in a storage room near the kitchen, wedged between flour sacks and a stack of unused ledgers that still smell faintly of ink. And damp parchment. It's quiet. Too quiet. The great house is not usually this still, not even at night. There's always something: a mouse in the pantry, a butler passing through, a half-drunk master grumbling to himself about the French, or the devil, or both. But tonight, everyone seems to be holding their breath. You lie still, eyes open, staring into the dark, waiting for the house to make a sound. But it doesn't, and that's when it starts, the slow creep of unease. That tickling in your spine. The thought that something is watching. You shift on your pallet. The floorboards creak. Bad idea. Because if there's one thing everyone agrees on, from the enslaved workers to the mistress of the house, it's that the great house wakes up at 3 a.m. and not in a good way. There are stories, always stories, about doors that open on their own, about cold spots on warm nights, about whispers down empty halls. You're not supposed to believe them. But then again, you're also not supposed to sleep alone in this part of the house. You pull the thin blanket up to your chin. Some say the house remembers things. That if someone dies in one of the rooms and no one sings their name, their shadow stays, walks the halls, opens the ledgers, frowns at the untidy silverware. Historians still debate how seriously these hauntings were taken. Was it folklore, or was it fear wrapped in superstition? In truth, people acted on it. Some rooms were never used at night. Some hallways had crosses carved under the floorboards. Others had bowls of rice tucked into corners to distract spirits from entering the bedrooms. You remember one housekeeper, old Miss Arla, who swore that placing a broom upside down behind the door would stop the ghost of the second master from walking. He can't resist counting the bristles, she said. Buys you just enough time to fall asleep. You tried it once. You didn't sleep any better, but the image stuck. Tonight, the house groans softly. Just the beam settling, you tell yourself. Then comes the creak of slow, deliberate step on the second floor. You know it's not the wind. It has weight. It's walking. You hold your breath. And then you remember the rats. Right. The rats. Always the rats. Except. This one's pacing, just above your head. You press your palm to the floor, feeling for vibration. Nothing. Just warmth. Your own heat. Bouncing back at you from the boards. You roll over slowly, careful not to make a sound. You reach for the small pouch you keep under your blanket, a mix of salt, lemon peel, and the sprig of dried mint. Superstition, yes, but old Miss Arla said it worked. Keeps your dreams to yourself, she whispered once, eyes darting to the high ceiling. Don't let the house borrow them. You place the pouch under your pillow. You don't close your eyes. Not yet. Because here's your quirky historical tidbit. In some island estates, workers swore that the great house had a soul, that the materials absorbed not just moisture but memory. Doors that stuck meant secrets. Floorboards that moaned meant lies. And a truly silent night? That meant something was waiting. You stare into the dark, and for a moment you think you see a flicker. A lamp? A candle? No. Just your imagination or the house stretching its spine. Eventually, your eyes grow heavy. Sleep doesn't come like a blanket tonight. It comes like fog, cautious, thick, and just a little suspicious, but it does come. You curl tighter, breathe slower. Let the great house keep its secrets. Let the ghosts count broom bristles or read the old ledgers. Tonight, you just want to rest. And in the silence, pressurized, watchful, you do. You wake up to drumming. Not loud. Not the kind of thundering roll that shakes the earth. No, this is softer, steadier, woven into the very fabric of the night. A heartbeat, but not your own. You're in Grenada, on the edge of the forest line, just past where the sugarcane ends and the real jungle begins. And tonight, like every few weeks, the drumming has started again. You sit up on your mat, not afraid, not curious exactly, just ... called. The night is warm and buzzing. Fireflies wink lazily in the dark. Somewhere a frog belts out a note. That sounds suspiciously like a complaint. The others are already awake, not talking, just listening. You follow the sound, through the tall grass, past the drying sheds, into the trees. It's not far, but the walk feels longer because you know where it ends. The clearing. A circle of trampled dirt, smoke, ash, feathers, laughter, and shadow. And at its center, a ring of people seated around a fire and the drums. There. Not here to celebrate. Not tonight. Tonight is for lulling children into sleep. And maybe spirits too. The drumming is slow, almost hypnotic. Deep bass drums that sound like thunder, remembered. Higher ones that chatter like birds. The rhythm changes slowly, the way a river curves, no sharp turns, just ease. You sit at the edge of the ring, cross-legged, and close your eyes. The air smells like charcoal, sweat, cassava mash, and crushed marigold. A woman rocks a baby in a sling while she drums with her free hand. An older man hums, his voice ragged and low, like he's only got a few notes left before morning. This is the drowsy rhythm, a deliberate composition passed down through the Maroon communities, designed to bring not excitement, but rest. And it's not just for the babies. You feel it in your shoulders first, a loosening, then your chest, then your neck. Sleep here is a group effort. You don't go alone. You are led in by rhythm, by scent, by breath. And for the children, it's ritual. It's security. The drum says, "You're safe now. The world is held. Go on, dream." Historians still argue about the purpose of these ceremonies. Were they religious, social, or just practical ways of organizing rest around shared watchfulness? One thing's clear, they worked. Children who tossed in their sleep would calm within seconds of the first beat. You lie back in the grass, using your arm as a pillow. The fire crackles. A woman walks past, barefoot, scattering dried petals into the flames. Not symbolic, just tradition. A few of the younger kids have fallen asleep already, tucked into cotton cloth bundles like warm bread. You smile. One's got their thumb in their mouth and the other hand gripping a stick like it's a sword. Even in sleep, they're a DVENTURING. Then comes your fringe detail for the night. Some communities believe that if you fell asleep to the wrong rhythm, you could drift into someone else's dream. That's why each family had a preferred tempo, passed down like a lullaby fingerprint. Yours is slow, 3 beats to 1 breath. You hum it to yourself. The drummer across the fire catches it just barely and matches it. For a moment, it feels like a secret handshake between your soul and theirs. You let your eyes fall shut that the earth beneath you is warm. The air on your face is soft. The drums, still steady, begin to fade not because they've stopped, but because you're slipping. Beneath them, letting go of the surface. And then the dreams arrive. No monsters. No omens. Just vivid fragments. Your mother grinding corn by lamplight. A mango orchard with a goat in a sun hat. A river that whispers your name, politely, as it passes. The beat keeps you tethered. No drifting. No getting lost. Just sleep. In its most communal, rhythmic, enchanted form. And somewhere beyond the trees, the world continues without you. Just as it should. You wake to shouting. Not urgent shouting. Not the kind with fire or danger behind it. Just colonial shouting, a voice with a wig and an opinion. You're in Kingston, Jamaica, around 1790, and you were trying to nap. The voice outside is bellowing. Something about noise ordinances, a new decree. Something about midday disturbances and the preservation of the Queen's peace. You've heard it all before. You sit up from your pallet under the back porch and blink into the daylight. Your nap was going well better than most. There was a dream about salted fish and someone singing in Dutch, but that's gone now. Stolen. By some petty magistrate with a clipboard and a sunburn. This is the part of history most people forget. Sleep isn't just a private thing. It's regulated, tracked, measured, and occasionally legislated. Especially in towns like this, where the blend of British law, Creole rhythm, and Afro-Caribbean traditions made for some very confused government policy. Today's conflict? The sleep tax. No, not a real tax. But that's what locals called it. A set of quiet-hour laws passed by certain town councils in an attempt to restore discipline and minimize idle loafing. Which is ironic, because the people making the laws were also the ones napping in their clubs after 4 glasses of fortified sherry. You lie back again, one hand over your face to block the sun, and try to remember the dream. Dutch song, something about herring. It's gone. Shame. It was a good one? The real joke? These sleep regulations weren't for the masters. They were aimed at you. At laborers, vendors, porters, anyone who might have the audacity to rest outside of officially sanctioned hours. You remember old Eustace from the rum docks. Used to string up a hammock between 2 barrels during his lunch break. Some fancy inspector fined him a full day's wages for obstructing the alleyway with personal repose. Eustace didn't pay. He gave the inspector a bottle of fermented papaya wine and a wink. The fine disappeared. So did most of the papaya wine. Historians still argue whether these ordinances were truly enforced or just performative. Some evidence suggests a few arrests were made for public lounging or horizontal idleness, but most of the time, The city just grumbled, posted a few signs, and then took a nap. You roll onto your side. The stone floor is warm under. Your hip. Somewhere nearby, someone is hammering on a pot lid. Children, probably, or bored adults with a bad sense of percussion. Either way, it's another nail in the coffin of this particular nap. And here comes your quirky fact of the hour, to avoid fines. Some workers in Kingston learn to sleep standing up, leaning against cool stone walls in shady alleys. They'd prop one knee slightly, hat pulled low, and drift off for 10 minutes. You tried it once. Dreamed of tipping over. Woke up on the cobblestones. Not your finest moment. You sit up fully now. No going back to sleep with all this clatter. But still you admire the persistence of the nappers. Because even under rules, under fines, under the withering gaze of powdered judges and clipped accents, people still found ways to rest. On sugar, sex, under market tables, behind the church. Wherever there was shade, there was sleep. The best ones, though. The rebels. The woman who snored through a town council meeting, right in the back pew, bonnet tilted just so the dock boy who wrote tax this, in chalk where he slept each day. The butcher who claimed his goats were meditating when someone asked why they were always lying down at noon. Sleep, it turns out, was resistance. And as you lean your head back against the porch post, eyelids heavy again, you find a kind of pride in that. You don't get much. You don't get silence or rights or freedom. But for a few stolen minutes you get this. A pause. A breath. A dream just barely remembered. And the sweet, petty satisfaction of napping anyway. You wake up tired. And that's the strange part, because you've been sleeping. You think you're not even sure anymore. The line between dream and waking is blurred like rum on a tablecloth. Welcome to Island Insomnia. You're in Antigua. In the dry season, when the dust from the hills mixes with the heat and settles in your lungs like unresolved arguments. You've tossed and turned on your mat for hours. Now your back aches. Your eyes sting. But your brain? Oh, it's wide awake. Running through every dumb thing you've ever said since birth. You sit up and stare out the open door. The moon's hanging low over the sugarcane, fat and indifferent. A dog barks once, then thinks better of it. Insomnia isn't rare here. In fact, it's common enough to have names. Old islanders called it restless wind. Others blamed it on bad dreams or curses or too much goat meat before bed. Some say the soil in certain villages holds on to grief, and if you sleep too close to it, your body forgets how to rest. You've heard all the theories. One of the most persistent? Goat curses. Supposedly, if you offend a particular old woman, often described as having 7 teeth, 3 cats, and a surprisingly agile walking stick, should whisper to one of your goats. That goat will then walk 3 circles around your bed at midnight, and boom, you'll never sleep again. Not well, anyway. You don't own goats. But you still eye the neighbors suspiciously. You get up and splash your face with rainwater from the barrel. Cool, refreshing, useless. You look at the small pouch of dried guava leaves near your bed, last week's failed experiment. Boiled, steeped, sweetened with sugar. Tasted fine. Slept terribly. You've also tried counting raindrops. Sleeping upside down on the bed. Writing your worries on a leaf and tossing it into the wind. Whispering your dreams into a bottle and corking it shut. Some helped. Most didn't. Historians still argue whether Caribbean insomnia was environmental or psychological. High humidity, noisy insects, economic anxiety, colonial trauma, it's a cocktail for wakefulness. But for the people living it, it wasn't theory. It was exhaustion with no off switch. You lie back down and stare at the ceiling, which is mostly just beams and wishful thinking. You hear someone nearby, maybe 2 houses over, pacing. Soft footfalls on wood. they're awake too. You wonder if they're also haunted by goat-related gossip and unpaid debts. And here's your quirky bit for the hour. Some island healers prescribe singing yourself to sleep, but not lullabies. Work songs. Chants from the fields, sung slowly, with breaths between each word. The idea was to remind the body of the rhythms it knew by heart. You try one now, quietly, under your breath. Cut the cane and tie it tight. Sleep will come before. The light. You hum it again, nothing, you sigh. Somewhere in the room, a lizard chirps, reminding you that at least someone's enjoying themselves tonight. You turn on your side. Then your back. Then your other side. The mat squeaks. The pillow might actually be a folded pair of trousers. Hard to say anymore. You close your eyes and try that old trick imagining yourself sinking slowly into the earth. Like you're a stone or a seed, or something meant to rest. You breathe and again, slower now. The moon moves a fraction in the sky, and at last, your mind begins to fog. You dream not vividly, not wildly, but like mist on a hill, and for now, for a few stolen. Hours you sleep. You wake with a start not because anything's wrong, but because you forgot, again, that your mosquito net makes you feel like you're trapped inside a ghost. It's early morning in Curacao, and the sky is just beginning to blush behind the clay-tiled rooftops. The air is warm, not yet hot, and you're bundled tightly in your mosquito cocoon, limbs stiff from sleeping with zero ventilation and the careful precision of someone who lives in constant fear of a bug sneaking in. But still you slept. And you'll sleep again, because you've learned how. There's a rhythm to it now. Net, oil, prayer, silence. You sit up slowly and begin your daily decocooning. Untuck the four corners of the net, each tied tight to the bed frame with knots that could survive a tropical storm. Fold inward, one side at a time, so you don't trap any stragglers. Whisper the good sleep words under your breath as you go. Yes, the words. You learn them from a merchant's wife who said her grandmother, a Dutch Creole woman with a limp and a silver comb, used to whisper this short phrase every night while tucking in her net. Jean Muggen, Jean Dramen, Jean Dwalicht Comp Van Act. No mosquitoes, no dreams, no wandering lights tonight. Historians still argue about these nighttime sayings. Were they just comforting rituals? Or protective charms passed down through generations too careful to say the word magic? Either way, you say them. Every night. Because why risk it? The net is simple, just cotton mesh soaked in citrus oil and vinegar, tied at 4 points and usually patched in 3 or 4 places. But it's sacred, because it keeps you safe. Mosquitoes. Here aren't just annoying, they're dangerous. They carry fever, chills, long weeks of sweating into your bedding while people whisper and pretend not to count your days. So you respect the net. You worship the net. You used to sleep without it, once, and that was the night you woke up with a constellation of bites across your left shoulder that looks suspiciously like someone spelling something. A joke, maybe. Or a warning. Now you double-check the corners. The room around you is still. A narrow bed, a clay jug of water, a shutter crack to let in just enough light. Outside, a parrot curses in papiamento, and a cart rolls by on wooden wheels. You don't move. You lie back again, just for a moment. You've got 20 minutes. Enough to slip under again if you breathe the right way. You light a sleeping candle, one of those little beeswax stubs infused with dried mint and lemongrass, mostly to soothe the air, partly to keep the spirits busy. The scent fills the room, soft and clean. And here's your quirky fringe detail for the night. Some households embroidered protective phrases into their mosquito nets, right along the seams. Not for style, for sleep magic. Latin prayers, African sigils. Even riddles. One widow embroidered a joke about her late husband snoring. If you can read this, you're too close. And probably snoring. You think about stitching something into yours. Something small. Maybe just the word stay. Because that's what sleep is, really. A temporary stay. Not gone. Just visiting. You pull the net back over yourself, tucking the edges in tightly. You say the words again, quieter this time. The smell of mint settles. Your breath slows. You let the world soften. And sleep doesn't come like a wave tonight. It comes like a curtain. Falling, soft, protective, familiar. You drift. And the net holds. You wake in the middle of the night not because of noise, but because your mouth is dry and your own voice just said something. You didn't mean to say. It happens more often now. You're in a boarding house in Tortola, sharing a room with two others, and one of them just sat up on their cot and whispered, "Did you hear that?" Yes, you did, because it came from your mouth. This is not a haunting, not a possession, not a tropical fever dream. This is something both ordinary and deeply uncomfortable. Sleep talking. Known more politely then as nocturnal utterances, and more impolitely as midnight confessions. You lie there frozen, hoping you didn't say anything damning. The room is dark, save for a strip of moonlight on the wall. You can hear your bunkmates breathing, short and suspicious. You clear your throat. "Sorry," you mumble. "Just dreaming." A pause. Then, right? You both pretend to fall back asleep, but you don't, not really. Because in the Caribbean of the 18th century, talking in your sleep was not just a curiosity, it could be dangerous. Especially if what you said involved names, or places, or secrets. The courts didn't recognize it as testimony, but your neighbors might. And in communities where oral gossip traveled faster than mail, a single whispered name could spark days of suspicion. Especially if you were enslaved, or a servant, or someone with little defense beyond "I don't remember." Historians still debate whether sleep talking led to actual punishment in most cases. There are stories, but few official records, just hushed tales of people reassigned, disciplined, or mysteriously removed after murmuring something they shouldn't have in their dreams. You swallow. Your throat is dry. You reach for the clay cup of water beside your cot. It's warm, metallic tasting. You drink it anyway. Your roommate turns over. The floor creaks. A cat meows outside like it knows something. And here's your fringe fact. For tonight, some islanders believe that tying a piece of ribbon around the tongue before sleep would keep the mouth still. Others preferred placing a stone beneath the pillow said to weigh down the words. You've tried the stone. It gave you neck pain and one very vivid dream about dancing with a donkey. So now you just hope for the best. You pull the sheet up to your chin. The pillow feels hot. You flip it, then immediately regret it. It's colder, but also slightly damp. Everything here is always slightly damp. You start thinking about what else you've said recently. Last week you mumbled something about molasses barrels. Did anyone hear that? What if they thought you were confessing to stealing? You didn't. Steal. Well, you did take a spoonful, but that hardly counts. You close your eyes and try the silent breath. Technique an old housemaid taught you. Breathe in on 1. Hold on 2. Out on 3. No words. No names. Just numbers. You whisper them now. So softly even your own ears can't quite hear. 1, 2, 3. It calms the mind. Usually. And tonight, it seems to work. The room fades again. The moonlight turning blue. The air growing still. You don't remember the moment sleep returns, only that your body uncoils. Your tongue stays still. Your dreams hold their secrets. And if you whisper anything tonight, may it be about mangoes, or dancing donkeys, or something so gentle no one would dare hold it against you. You sleep, and this time you say nothing. You wake up, but you don't open your eyes, not yet, because there's a feeling in the room, a hush so thick it seems to press down on your skin. You're in a rural part of Hispaniola, far from town, tucked into a hut made of adobe and thatch. With only one oil lamp between you and the shadows, you're not alone. Not in a bad way. Not necessarily. You've heard the old stories, just like everyone else, about the spirits. The ones who don't knock, who don't moan, who don't rattle chains like bored theater ghosts. The ones who simply stand there, quiet, watching, curious. Open one eye. Slowly. The room is empty. Of course it is. But that doesn't mean no. Once here, you shift slightly under your sheet. The air smells like burnt rosemary, salt, and a touch of smoke, the usual bundle burned after sundown to keep the good neighbors content. You lit it yourself before bed. You even whispered the standard greeting. Walk past me and I'll not walk into you. It's tradition. Part protection, part politeness. And in the Caribbean, politeness is survival, especially when it comes to spirits. They're not evil, not exactly, but they don't like being ignored, and they love a sleeping house. It's quiet, uncluttered, vulnerable. They don't possess. They don't haunt. They visit. They sit at the foot of your bed. They listen to your dreams. Sometimes they even leave gifts. One woman in the next village swears she woke up with mango peels braided into her hair. She wasn't mad. Said it helped with frizz. Historians still argue whether this widespread belief in household spirits was an echo of African ancestor reverence, Catholic saint veneration, or indigenous animism. But in reality, it was likely all three braided together like a sleep charm on a child's wrist. You sit up slowly now. Nothing in the room has moved. The shadows are where you left them. Your water jug is still half full. Your sandals are still lined up, just so. Another old trick. Spirits, they say, love tidy shoes. Won't bother you if you line them up nicely. There's a whisper of wind at the door. It doesn't open, but it shifts. The old blanket nailed over it flutters just slightly. You lie back down, not because you're tired, but because. What else is there to do at 3:43 a.m. when a spirit may or may not be watching you? You turn to your side, facing the wall. That's another trick. Spirits prefer eye contact. If you don't give it, they usually get bored. You mutter the little rhyme under your breath. If you pass through me, pass light. If you watch me, then turn right. If you want me, let me be. Sleep will take what you don't see. Quaint. Yes. But it helps. And here's your fringe detail for the night. In some island regions, people believe that you could trap a visiting spirit in your dream if you offered them a question, and they answered, and you remembered. That's why some slept with a quill under the pillow, ready to write when they woke. You don't own a quill, but you do have a piece of charcoal and a bit of bark tucked near the bedpost. Just in case, you close your eyes again. The room doesn't feel so heavy now, just hushed, respectful. You whisper, "Good night," not to anyone. Or maybe to everyone. And then, as if summoned by your calm, the stillness deepens. Your muscles soften. The blanket warms. The lamp flickers once, then holds steady. You dream of a long hallway filled with open windows. You walk past each one, never stopping. At the end of the hall, someone offers you a mango. You say no, politely. They nod. You wake. Hours later. Nothing missing. One shoe slightly out of line. You smile. And next time, you'll leave them a chair. You don't wake up this time. You were never fully asleep. You're in St. Domingue again. But everything is quieter than usual. Too quiet. Not the peaceful silence of a sleeping island, but the suspicious hush of something waiting to happen. It's your last night here. You don't know it yet. You lie in a wooden bunk inside the servants' quarters of a plantation estate, not far from Cap Franque, where whispers are thicker than smoke and the air tastes like something's about to break. Heard the rumors. Everyone has. that the uprising is coming, that something big is moving through the cane fields at night, not an animal, not a ghost, but anger with a heartbeat. But that's not what keeps you from sleeping, it's the stillness. The animals are quiet. No dogs barking. No night birds singing. No breeze rustling the banana trees. Just the slow, even breathing of the others in the room. A chorus of exhaustion. You lie there, eyes open, staring at the ceiling beams above you. One has a crack in the middle shaped like a lightning bolt. You've been watching it for months. Every time you sleep here, you trace it with your eyes. It calms you. Tonight it doesn't, because tonight everything feels final. You shift. The straw mattress crackles beneath you. You don't want to wake the boy sleeping beside you. He's only 10. Earlier, he asked you if dreams could hear gunshots. You said no. You lied. You've seen what a plantation looks like the morning after a revolt. The still burning huts. The blood. The broken tools. The wide eyes of men who don't know whether they're free or fugitives. You saw it once, years ago, in another district, and still you lie down. Because even in revolution, even in uncertainty, even in the long breath before history exhales, people sleep. They must. The body insists. You. Close your eyes and listen to the others. One is snoring softly. Another murmurs in French Creole, half a prayer, half a shopping list. Someone coughs. Someone else sighs in their sleep and turns over, pulling the sheet up tight like it might protect them from what's coming. You don't sleep yet, but you do rest. And here comes your final quirky detail. Some people in this region believe that if you died in your sleep during a time of unrest, your soul would wake up confused, unsure if it had passed or not. To avoid this, they'd tie a red thread around one toe. A tether to the living. A reminder. You tied yours before lying down. You told yourself it was tradition. But deep down, you know it's fear. And yet, you sleep. Eventually. Not deeply. Not long, but just enough. You dream of drums, not the slow lullabies of Grenada, but fast, urgent ones. Warning drums. Wake-up drums. The kind that start revolutions. In the dream, you walk barefoot through a field lit by stars. Everyone is walking. With you. No one says a word. You wake before dawn. Still alive. Still tied. The world outside your door has already started to change. And somewhere, miles away, the first fire has been lit. Now, let yourself exhale. You've traveled far tonight through hammocks and barracks, over wooden decks and under mosquito nets. You've wandered from mountain huts to jungle clearings, from whispered prayers to midnight drums. You've walked barefoot through someone else's memory and let sleep find you in unfamiliar places. And yet, somehow you're still here, still breathing, still. Wrapped in the gentle hush of a world that, despite everything, lets you rest. So soften your thoughts now. Let them drift like smoke above a sleeping fire. Loosen your jaw, your shoulders, your fingers. Let go of every name you carried tonight. Every face you imagined, every voice that hummed you to sleep from the past. The room around you is quiet. No more drums, no more stories. Just breath. Let it slow. Let the weight of history fade into the background. There is nothing left to do tonight. No work, no walking, no remembering. Only this moment. This hush. This warmth beneath your blanket, or your sheet, or the stars above your ceiling. Whatever tomorrow brings, whatever winds or whispers may find you, tonight, you've earned your rest. Close your eyes. Sleep well. Sleep safe. Sleep long.